I found out about ESF because the campus is designed by one of the foremost landscape architects of this century, Dan Kiley. And that's the first time I actually ever heard about it. A lot of people didn't know what landscape architecture was, but ESF actually developed landscape architecture right from the start when they were thinking about the environment and the climate and how we can actually do it. They were thinking about the embodied experience that landscape architecture can have. And the reason that I came to ESF was actually because it was in a school of forestry was one of the really big things about it. A lot of times landscape architectures are in design schools or in architecture schools, and so there's a lot of emphasis on the aesthetics and the design and the form. But here at ESF, since we're actually one of the only kind of like arty or like visual based programs here, it's so much based on how it actually performs and the ecology and the systems thinking of it, which creates a totally different kind of process and a totally different kind of landscape architecture than other places. Landscape architecture as a field has to really embrace its position as a space and a field that can change how culture interfaces with the land and with the earth and with the future. And what my classes have always really tried to focus on is not just the landscape and what we're designing as an isolated system, but of course it's connected to all of the areas around it. It's connected to the bike lanes, it's connected to the trees, it's connected to mountains that could be hundreds of miles away, and it's connected to the culture, the economics, the history, the aesthetics. I just finished my second year doing intro to landscape architecture. It's not a studio class, nobody's drawing. It's kind of like changed over the years based on what the professors think it's important for people to know about landscape architecture. And my big thing is landscape architecture is a way where we can embody a different way that we connect to the earth. So they learn about what the land historically used to be. They learn about who's using that space, what those people are actually like. They learn about different kind of like ecological archetypes. They learn about aesthetics. They even learn about how spaces are funded and how the funding of public spaces kind of like moves forward. At the end of the day, we want people to get jobs, and there's a certain kind of international aesthetic look that's going to get you a job, because that's like what is the industry standard for how you actually represent things. But then how do you actually work with the students so that their individual personalities and their individual passions actually come up? I had a bunch of students who were incredible soccer players and hockey players in landscape architecture, going to nationals, competing all the time. And I said, take that idea of how you're moving in these spaces and let's bring it to landscape architecture. So I think a lot of like how I've been trying in my pedagogy to bring up students is to really allow them to define these ideas. You're never going to have a landscape architecture project that isn't about entryway and circulation and about community coming together. But the important thing is, what does that actually mean for you? What does that mean in terms of how you're moving, the materiality, like what it actually feels like? And so that's what I've been trying to do a lot in my pedagogy. Landscape architecture as a field has always felt second class to architecture, has always kind of like been trying to catch up. There's always been an inferiority complex. We always say that we're a shade-loving kind of like field because we just love to be in the shade and we don't want anyone to look at us. But at ESF, we're a field that's taking all of this knowledge around us and seeing like what feels right, what is happening in microbiology, what's happening in our CRM, and how can we actually embody that. And I think that's a really special situation. Rather than just trying to imitate what architecture is doing, we're actually catalyzing and transforming something on our own. It has been like really fun to work with like environmental science and environmental studies and then like rhetoric at SU. I think all of our fields are actually inherently interdisciplinary, but I think ESF is a small enough school where I have to say like microbiologists would never speak to me at University of Oregon or at USC. They were just like way across campus. But now they're like down the hall and we're like catching lunch, and there's something about the size of it and the fact that ESF is a place where I think everybody's here to try to change the world that really like brings us together.